One of the most hilarious things I've ever seen was something I read about just recently. Some animal rights activist, some rainbow clad woman, stormed a marine restaurant or a restaurant serving marine food. She grabbed a lobster from the tank because you know how restaurants have these tanks with lobsters in them, and then you point at the lobster you want, and the restaurant pulls, or somebody from the restaurant pulls them up from the tank, puts them in a cauldron, and then boils them for you. Well, animal rights activists think that that's torture. Whereas I believe that research has actually showed that the animals suffer no harm, but whatever. I don't know how these things are being assessed. Anyway, so this woman, this rainbow-clad woman, runs into the restaurant, just spots the tank with the lobsters, dips her arm into the tank, grabs a lobster, runs off, throws it, or runs to the harbor, throws it into the sea in an attempt to free it because she didn't want the lobster to end up as food. As if that ain't hilarious enough, really, when it comes to it. The even more hilarious point was that particular lobster was named George and served as sort of like an educational lobster meant to teach children about marine life. In other words, children came to the restaurant to see little George walking around in the tank being a lobster. He was never meant to be eaten. I mean, we don't know that. Maybe they intended to eat him later on. Full confession, by the way, I don't know if lobsters taste worse as they age. I assume they do. But anyway, this particular lobster, little George, wasn't meant to be eaten at all. And this woman refused to even check it. Now, the main point, aside from the fact that it is utterly hilarious how our animal rights activism, how our misguided animal rights activism, by the way, didn't even end up helping her cause at all, is rather the fact that she was persuaded by something that turned out to be false. In other words, she thought that the lobster she rescued was about to be eaten because she didn't do proper research. This is kind of like selling sand to an Arab in Sahara, or in some sort of in a Gulf state or some such, or selling ice to an Eskimo. It's virtually impossible. The Eskimos have enough ice. The Arabs have enough sand. You can't sell them sand. You can't sell them ice, right? So what's the obvious lesson here? Before you're attempting to sell somebody, you need to do research, right? For example, I sell the idea of sales and persuasion. And so I don't go to grandmas who want to learn how to knit. Or I don't go to overweight people who want to lose weight, because those aren't in my niche. In my niche, there are entrepreneurs, business owners, sales executives, CEOs, and so on. People who want to close other people. That's essentially the target group that I'm addressing, right? So I can't be misguided. I can go into some fat loss center and pitch my services because, well, quite frankly, I can't even help them. Well, maybe I can because I used to be fat and I have lost weight. But that's not the main service that I deliver. The main service that I deliver is to teach and educate you about how to use persuasion, and especially how to do proper research on somebody before you're attempting to persuade or sway them. In this case, this woman persuaded herself, or allowed somebody else to persuade her into believing that any lobster in a randomly given tank at a restaurant serving marine food was meant to be cooked or eaten, because she didn't even bother to do the research, right? So it ended up being a bad deal. She ended up making an ass of herself, all for nothing. She ended up clowning herself, all for nothing. Now, I don't really know if she faced any charges, or I'm assuming the restaurant wanted little George back. Maybe the restaurant, I don't know, demanded that she deep dive, or that she jumped into the water and dive down and find little George again. I don't really know. The point is, always do proper research before you're trying to persuade somebody or sell them on something. Because otherwise, you're just going to make an arse out of yourself. If you want to learn more about sales and persuasion, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching and or listening to this. And I'll see you there.